And before we get right into it, I need to talk about 5 years, because I'm of the age where, I was listening to 5 years back in 72, 73, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And it's interesting because as soon as I heard that drum beat, I knew what it was.
Yeah.
Hearing that song today in a different context, I'm interested in how you approached it. Why did you choose that, and what were you thinking about when you were recording it?
We initially did it for a live show. We were doing this series of shows here in Toronto that we put on at a small club, sort of a monthly residency or a weekly residency with a bunch of bands that are on our label, and we were doing these themed sets. And one of them was, one night it was dead heroes. So we all had to pick songs of people who are heroes and they had to be dead, and we'd help we collaborate on the songs and stuff. So we picked 5 years. And the same thing, I remember like that record, Zig Guitarist to me is a huge record. It still is. Yeah. And, 5 years with that drum beat, that opening, the way the record opens up like that has always been so dramatic and so like just the best opening track of all time. So it's always been a heavy song for us. Never considered covering it until, we we're searching around for songs to cover. And I think I was just listening to the record. My son actually was really getting into all that era. So he was probably listening to it one day, and I heard it again and thought, wow, man, that's such a great song. And sort of began thinking about it in terms of how we could do it. And I thought, well, let's just give it a shot. And so we went at it. And, one thing we kept for sure was that drum beat, because it's such a, that persistence and that sort of, that the momentum of the drums, they just never stop, they never grow, they just sort of fade up and then they're in, and that's it. And so that's why we chose it. And so we did it live, that one show, and then we loved doing it, and it got a great reaction. So we continued to do it live we've been doing it live now for about 5 years, and
so to speak.
And when every night, every time we do it, it gets a great, people recognizing, they get this little frisson goes through the audience. So when we were putting songs together for this, that's actually the one we recorded specifically for this record, because we've been doing it live, so it's very easy for us to get down on tape.
Right. It's interesting because that song itself, it had a certain meaning back in 72.
Yeah.
Seems to have a similar but different meaning here in 22.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I think it's exciting to play live, because it has so much more weight. It has so much weight now, and even though it was written literally 50 years ago, you carry it forward like a lot of David Bowie's stuff and a lot of his predictions. Really, they carry so much. They're so relevant now, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned the crowd reacted well. Do crowds come up to you and suggest cover tunes for you to do?
All the time. All the time.
And have you taken up on any of their suggestions?
Never.
I love it. Okay. So you mentioned that the rest of the tracks have all been kind of in existence in one place or another over the course of the last 20 years or so. So what was the process of putting this record together then?
Well, once we came up with the idea of doing it, somebody put it in our heads, and we thought it would, this was supposed to come out like 6-8 months ago, sort of end of the COVID period, supposedly, and something to do and something to get out there just to re-engage with the audience. Got delayed for all sorts of reasons. So we went to our archive and sort of started gathering up all the cover songs that, hadn't, the first thought was songs that hadn't been, covers that we'd done that hadn't been properly exposed. Some of them were just on tribute records, some more or less popular, a lot of them kind of buried in ways, or bonus tracks or whatever. And then so we gathered all those together and then cut them down into the ones we really, really liked, and then the ones we really, really, really liked, and then and then also we chose a few that were just sitting in our archive and had never been released. So we brought those up, and we added a few things to a couple of songs here and there, and so it's really a combination of songs that we think most people wouldn't have heard a lot of, and also the ones that we felt were really the strongest. So it was really that's what it was. And then when we looked at it, when we looked at the collection, we sort of realized, these artists and some of these songs, but certainly the artists, are really relevant to us in terms of who we are as musicians and as people in many ways, and that era, especially that early 70s era. and then the late 70s, early 80s era was very big for us as kids, and then as musicians later on. So it kind of fell together conceptually as well, which is kind of cool.
And it's kind of interesting. I think the most recent song you cover is a Dylan cover. So on the record, so a man who's been making them for 60 years or so plus. Yeah.
Now I'm sitting on the terrace, lost in the stars, listening to the sounds of the sad guitars.
Yeah.
How did you come about deciding on that track?
Well, that was part of initially we released it not that long ago. Uncut magazine in England came to us. They were doing an 80th birthday for a sort of a cover mount for Dylan, and they asked if we wanted to cover a song. So we said yeah, and then we began to think about like what songs we want to cover. You know, it's obviously there's endless amounts you can cover with him, but we decided we didn't want to do one of the classics. We didn't want to do an old one. You know, they've all been covered to death, and And then his new record, Rowdy Ways, had just come out. So, and I love the record. I just think it's so great. So we thought, well, let's do a new one. And part of the problem was we couldn't really get together to record it as a band because it was right in the middle of COVID. So we thought, let's do something that we felt we could do kind of track by, I could do a part, then Pete could come in and play to that. And, we could do it kind of separately, and I could send tracks off to Alan. And the track we chose, it's a waltz, and we're very good at waltzes. We're sort of in our DNA in a way. So we decided to go with that when we figured, and Margot felt she could really deliver that one too. So that was a big part.
Right. And speaking of Margot, I mean, she has to sing the songs. So obviously her input is important. What kind of discussions do you have about that when you
about covers?
Yeah.
We have, well, often sometimes there won't be a discussion. We'll just try it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Like there's no, if Margot can't sing it or she just feels she can't get into it, then we just throw it away.
Right.
Sometimes like with the Dylan track, it was like, listen to the song, tell me what you think, because we weren't going to have that opportunity to get together and fool around with it. We're just going to kind of record it. And, it had to kind of work because we were doing it for a project. So, certainly with that, we would ask, I would ask her. 5 years as well was sort of like, look, I think we should do this song. I think we could do a really great version of it. And she obviously knew the song, said, yeah, that'd be great. So, everybody sort of has to sort of want to do a song. Otherwise it's kind of pointless.
Yeah. And a lot of these artists that you cover are still around. Do you get much feedback from any of them ever?
Not really, no, it'd be nice to, but I've never, no. The only one we've already got was Lou Reed, famously Lou Reed, got back to us about Sweet Jane and loved that version. Yeah. But I've never really, and we've covered so many people. I know with Las Vegas, Emmylou Harris got back to us and said because she produced the record that it was originally on, and said she really liked it. So, a few occasionally, but rarely. It's kind of interesting.
So you guys have been doing some shows. Are you kind of on the road or thinking about what's it like out these days? Whatever.
It's been weird. We just started up. We had a few shows in October and November, which we did. There was sort of like that little dip in COVID, and we all thought we were coming out, and then Omicron hit and everything was canceled again. And then we did some shows last month, and then we're back out on the road in 2 weeks. So I think now we're up and going and trying to make up for lost time and doing shows that were canceled, including for 3 years ago in New Zealand.
Right.
So,
So
So we're back at it, and hopefully things are going to stick this time.
Yeah. Well, you guys have been here a few times, so
I can't wait. It's been a while. It's been a long time. So it's been a long time.
Yeah. Now, getting back to the album, I see there's a Gordon Lightfoot on there, The Way I Feel, which is from way back, 66 or so, I think, when he recorded it. And of course, he's a fellow Canadian as well. So I think it came from a tribute album that was released, another 20 years or so ago.
Long time ago, yeah.
The way I feel is like a robin whose babes have flown to come no more, like a taller tree, alone and crying when the birds have flown and the nest is bare.
I assume you must have had some interaction with Gordon Lightfoot. He's a fellow Canadian.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not so sure about that particular song. We've certainly interacted with him at various shows and done a couple of shows with them. I can't remember if he ever commented on the song. That was done a long time ago.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, he's, we're in Toronto. He's in Toronto, and he's around. He comes to various, events and things like that. So yeah, we've had interaction with him for sure.
And there's some interesting guitar on that particular track.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, that's the fun thing about doing covers, and they're one-offs, so you can experiment and kind of go crazy, and it's kind of fun. So like that song, and Las Vegas has a similar sort of guitar approach to it, and 17 Seconds as well has got a pretty wacky guitar approach. So they're kind of fun, you initially you're thinking of them as these standalone tracks, so you want to sort of express something that maybe the listener isn't expecting, because they're not necessarily aimed towards the Junkies listeners, they're aimed towards the list people are going to be buying this person's, who are fans of the band you're doing. So it's kind of fun to sort of throw curveballs in them.
Yeah, well, speaking of that, 17 Seconds, it kind of reminded me almost of Cortez the Killer, the way the vibe that you guys created. So
Time slips away and the love begins to fade. Everything is quiet now.
It's funny you said that, because when we recorded 17 Seconds, we were also working on a cover of Cortez the Killer, which we never got out of the studio. And so that's we could have basically read the Cortez,
some leakage.
Just continue on. So that's interesting you say that. So it's very possible.
Oh, right. Okay, that's cool. So are you guys thinking in terms of new music, original music, and working on some new stuff?
Yeah, we've just finished a new record, actually. Just finished mixing it. I think we're completed. We might have to do a mix or two more, but now we're at the point of sort of cutting it down. We've got, I think, 14 songs. We want to cut it down to about 9 or 10. And but realistically, we probably won't release it till the fall or even the new year. The New Zealand tour might be the debut of the record. I don't know.
Oh, that'd be great.
It'll be like 8 months or so. It takes a long time to get a record out these days because there's this big vinyl backup in the world.
Yeah.
So we're sort of aiming for, at the very earliest, it would be fall of this year or the first thing next year.
Right. And when you are putting together a record like this and recording a record, do you guys work differently than you did, say, 30, 40 years ago?
A new album?
Yeah.
Not really. I mean, certainly the first couple of records, they're all, done with one microphone. That both.
Right. Yeah,
so that's pretty unique. We don't do that anymore. But we tend to try and get a lot of it together as a band, and try and record as much as we can live off the floor, and then add to that, add after that. We like the energy that the band can communicate when it's playing together. So that's sort of the standard way of us approaching things. And then the instrumentation that we add might want to be different from record to record, and also the approach. The songs obviously might be the way we approach them, but the actual way we record is pretty much the same.
And do the roles change within the band? I mean, it's pretty much the same personnel.
Not really, I mean, we pretty much I think that's why it works. We kind of do. We're kind of pretty happy. Each is pretty happy with their own role and knows what's expected of them. We might every now and then expand a little bit, but generally you're responsible for what you're responsible for, and that's the way the band keeps going.
And what about collaborations? Do you think, in terms of ever working outside of the band format and working with other people much?
Well, I do a lot of stuff with other people. I produce a lot of records. I have my own studio, so I do a lot of production and film work and stuff. So I do that by myself without the band, and or with other musicians, depending on the format. But so I do a lot of collaboration with other people.
All right. Well, so what can you tell us about the tour coming up in New Zealand? I mean, it's going to be awesome because of what you just done here. But what are you thinking about? Do you have to customize the set list for where you're playing?
Well, a little bit, because it's been a long time since we've been in New Zealand. So, and we're going on from there to Australia. So it's been a long time. It's been about 20 years or so. So So we'll definitely. I mean, if we have a new record, we'll play some off the new record, but it's not going to be dead. The set won't be dedicated to new material.
Right.
It'll be a real broad-reaching sort of, reaching into all eras, and it'll change every night too. The set list will definitely change every night, and it'll be pretty. It'll be pretty broad. We'll hit enough material where your casual fan is happy, and enough deep cuts where your intense fan will be happy to hear it, and then there's some new stuff too. So that's mainly the way we approach all our sets these days. But certainly when we go to a country that we haven't been to or haven't been to in a long time, we make sure that we're hitting the songs we think people really want to hear.
Yep. Well, sounds like it's going to be fun. We're dying for new music, especially we have a great local scene, but nothing's happening at the moment here in New Zealand, and
I know
like a month or maybe even longer. But it's very frustrating to be a live music fan and to be here.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Hopefully it will all happen.
Yeah, I think so. This time it's got to happen.
Yep. Very good. All righty. Well, thank you
for
spending time talking to me. I appreciate it. It's great.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to seeing you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.